My name is Myra Lawson. I'm 28 years old. The night before my wedding, at 2 in the morning, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. The name on the screen made my blood turn cold. Frank Calloway, my dead mother's lawyer. He hadn't called me in 3 years. He said, "Cancel everything. Your father just signed papers that will ruin your life." I asked, "What papers?" He whispered, "He transferred your whole trust fund. $1.8 million to your stepsister. But that's not the worst part. Check your fiancé's bank account." What I found made me cancel more than just the wedding. Before we begin, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you truly feel this story is worth it. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? And what time is it where you are right now? Let me take you back 6 years, to the week my mother was buried, and the week everything started going wrong. But first, before the phone call, before the betrayal, let me show you what I was about to lose. 3 days before the wedding, I stood alone in a 4-bedroom house on Maple Ridge Lane. The walls smelled like fresh paint, eggshell white. The realtor left 30 minutes ago, and I just stayed. I ran my hand along the kitchen counter. Cool granite. I pictured a fruit bowl here, a coffee maker there. A framed photo of my mother right above the window where the morning light would shine on it. 6 years of night shifts lived in that down payment. $60,000 earned one 12-hour ICU shift at a time. Every holiday I picked up. Every double shift I volunteered for. All of it sitting in a cashier's check, waiting for closing day, 2 weeks after the wedding. The rest of the house, the gap in the mortgage, that's where Mom's trust fund came in. $1.8 million she set aside before she died. She told me once, sitting in the oncology ward with an 4 in her arm, "This money is for the day you're settled, Myra. Not for being rich, for being okay." That day was supposed to be Saturday. My phone rang. "Troy. Hey, beautiful. You at the house again?" I laughed. "I can't help it. 2 more weeks and it's ours. Listen, tomorrow's going to be the best day of my life." I believed him. God, I believed every word. I locked the front door, drove back to our apartment, and fell asleep thinking about centerpieces and seating charts and how my mother would have loved the garden. I didn't know that while I was dreaming about that house, my father was signing it away. The phone lit up at 2:07 a.m. I know the exact time because I stared at it for 4 rings before I picked up. The name on the screen was Frank Calloway. The last time Frank called me was when Mom's estate was finalized. Frank only ever called about Mom. "Myra, I'm sorry to wake you." His voice was tight, controlled. The way doctors sound right before they say something that changes everything. "Frank, what's wrong? I'm sorry to call this late, but by morning there won't be anything left to save." He told me plainly, the way lawyers do. My father, Gerald Lawson, had gone to a notary that afternoon. He'd signed a trustee distribution order moving the entire trust, my mother's $1.8 million, to Amber Sutton, Denise's daughter, my stepsister. The transfer would be final within 48 hours. I sat up in bed. The room felt like it tipped. "How do you know this?" "I'm still the attorney of record on the original trust. The bank sent me a copy of the transfer notice this afternoon. I called your father first. He didn't answer. I couldn't speak for a moment. Then Frank said the thing that broke everything else. There's something else. Pull up Troy's bank account." My hands were shaking. Troy was asleep beside me, breathing slow and deep. I opened his banking app. We shared passwords, the way couples do when they trust each other. And there it was, a deposit, $40,000 from Gerald Lawson's personal account 6 months ago. The memo line read 2 words, "Per agreement." I looked at Troy, asleep, peaceful. The man lying next to me was part of it. To understand what my father stole, you have to understand what my mother built. Linda Calloway Lawson, 5 feet 3 inches, former school librarian, diagnosed with stage 3 lung cancer at 51, never smoked a day in her life. She and Dad divorced when I was 18. It was quiet, no screaming, they just stopped fitting together. Dad moved to a rental across town. They still ate dinner together on my birthday. Mom got the house and most of the savings. Dad got his truck and his pension. Fair enough. 2 years later, Mom got the diagnosis. And she did what librarians do. She researched. She organized. She planned. She sold the house. She cashed out her retirement. She talked to Frank Calloway, an estate lawyer she knew from church. Together they built a trust. $1.8 million, every penny she had, put into an irrevocable trust for me. The terms were simple. I'd get the full amount at 28 or when I got married, whichever came first. Until then, my father would be the trustee. She trusted him because he'd been decent during the divorce, because he still called her Lynn, because he brought soup when she was too sick to cook. She signed the trust on a Tuesday. She died on a Thursday, 11 weeks later. I was 22. I held her hand at the end. She looked at me and said, "The money is for settling, baby, not for spending. You'll know when." I carried those words like a stone in my pocket for 6 years. My mother trusted my father with my future. She didn't know she was handing it to a stranger. Because 10 months after we buried her, Dad married Denise. Denise Pute Lawson showed up in my father's life like weather. One day it was clear, the next she was just there, in Mom's kitchen, wearing Mom's apron. She was 43 then. Blonde highlights, soft voice, always touching Dad's arm. She had a daughter from a past marriage, Amber Sutton, 18. Quiet, pretty, fresh out of high school with no real plan. Denise cried a lot. At dinner she'd tear up and say, "I just hate that Amber never had a real father figure." She'd look at Dad with those wet eyes, and Dad would squeeze her hand and say, "She has one now." I tried. I really did. I drove 2 hours for Thanksgiving that first year. I brought pumpkin pie, walked in, and found Amber sitting in my chair. My photos on the hallway shelf, replaced with a family portrait. Gerald, Denise, Amber, smiling, color-coordinated. Dad saw me looking at it. "We needed an updated photo, sweetheart." I went upstairs to use the bathroom and passed my old bedroom. The door was open. Amber's clothes on the bed. Amber's posters on the walls. My mother's antique vanity gone. I didn't say anything. Not then. But the worst discovery came 3 months later. I was scrolling a local buy-sell group online and saw it. Mom's wedding ring, the sapphire one Dad gave her in 1994. Listed for $1,200. Posted by Gerald Lawson. I called him. He said, "Denise thought it was just taking up space." That's when something shifted in me. Not anger exactly, clarity. "I just want what's fair for both girls," Denise liked to say. "That's all any mother wants." She said it so often I almost missed what it really meant. I want to be clear about something. I never asked my father for $1. Not once. Not after Mom died. Not after Denise moved in. Not when I was 23 and eating ramen in a studio apartment while studying for my nursing boards. I earned every shift, every scar on my hands. I passed the NCLEX on my first try. Got hired at Riverside Memorial, small hospital, big ICU, non-stop chaos. Night shift, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., 3 nights a week, sometimes 4. The kind of schedule that wrecks your sleep and your social life, but builds a savings account, if you're disciplined enough. And I was disciplined. I saved $10,000 a year for 6 years. $60,000 total. I didn't touch Mom's trust. That was sacred. That was for settling. I met Troy Beckett 2 years ago. He sold health insurance to hospital employees. That's how he ended up in our break room one Tuesday, handing out brochures and smiling like a man who truly liked his job. He was 30, charming in a quiet way, the kind of guy who remembered your coffee order after hearing it once. We dated. It was normal, steady. He wasn't rich, but he was dependable. He picked me up after night shifts. He didn't complain about my hours. 6 months in, he said, "Stop worrying about money. I'll figure it out." I thought that was love talking. I know now it was a man who already had 40,000 reasons not to worry. But at the time, Troy felt like the last piece. The house, the trust, the husband, everything my mother wanted for me finally falling into place. I should have known. Things don't fall into place. They get arranged. The month I turned 28, I called my father. "Dad, the trust unlocks this year. I found a house. I need to start the disbursement paperwork." He was quiet for a beat too long. Then, "Of course, sweetheart. I'll handle the trust paperwork. That's my job as your dad." I didn't think twice. He was the trustee. That was literally his job. I sent him the details. The house on Maple Ridge. $280,000. Closing set for 2 weeks after the wedding. My $60,000 would cover the down payment. The trust would cover the rest. Dad said, "Focus on your wedding. I'll handle the rest." So I did. I focused on caterers and guest lists and bridesmaid fittings. I let my father handle the one thing my mother specifically trusted him to do. Looking back, I can see how he kept calming me down. "Don't worry about the bank. I talked to them. The paperwork's moving. Just slow. You've got enough on your plate with the wedding." Every time I asked a follow-up question, he steered me away. And here's the thing that keeps me up at night. The same week Dad told me to focus on the wedding, he called Troy. I know this now because of phone records. A 14-minute call the day after I told Dad about the house. I don't know exactly what was said, but I know what happened next. Troy suddenly pushed for a faster wedding date. Why wait until fall? Let's do June. I thought it was romantic. Impatient love. It was a deadline. Dad needed the wedding to happen before I turned 28, or close enough that I'd be too busy to check. And it almost worked. The signs were there. I just didn't want to see them. 4 months before the wedding, Troy paid off his student loans, all $35,000. I found out because he left a bank statement on the kitchen counter. "How?" I asked. "You've been paying minimums for years." "End-of-year bonus," he said, not looking up from his phone. Troy sold health insurance for a regional company. His base salary was $52,000. I knew this because we'd combined our budgets for the wedding. No regional insurance rep gets a $35,000 bonus, but I let it go because I wanted it to be true. Then there was the bridesmaid fitting. Dad suggested Amber join as a bridesmaid. It would mean a lot to Denise, he said. I agreed. I was trying to keep peace. Amber showed up and picked the most expensive dress without blinking. $340. Denise smiled and said, "She deserves to feel special too." 2 weeks before the wedding, I got an email from the bank handling the trust. Subject line: "Your trust disbursement timeline has been updated." I glanced at it, saw official wording, and assumed Dad was moving things along. I didn't click the attachment. That attachment was the beneficiary change notice. And then there was Aunt Helen, Mom's younger sister. She called me one evening out of nowhere. "Honey, I know Gerald is your father, but your mother didn't trust him with just money. She trusted him with you." "What are you saying, Aunt Helen?" "I'm saying pay attention." I told her everything was fine. I told her I was getting married and buying a house and that Dad was handling the trust. She went quiet then. "Just pay attention, Myra." I didn't listen. I wish I had. Friday night rehearsal dinner. 40 people in the back room of Martinelli's, the only Italian restaurant in our town that could seat more than 30. Dad stood up and clinked his glass. The room got quiet. "Linda would have been so proud," he said. His voice cracked and half the room teared up. "I just wish she could see this." Denise dabbed her eyes with a napkin. Perfect timing always. I looked around the table. Troy's parents, my college friends, Sarah, my maid of honor, cousins I hadn't seen in years, and across from me, Amber, scrolling her phone under the table. Troy squeezed my hand. "You okay?" "Perfect," I said, and I meant it. After dessert, I caught Amber and Denise in the hallway near the restrooms. Amber was whispering something, and Denise laughed quick and sharp. The kind of laugh that stops when someone walks around the corner. "What's so funny?" I asked. Denise smiled. "Girl talk. Amber's just excited for tomorrow." Amber posted an Instagram story that night. A photo of us at the table captioned, "So proud of my stepsister." Heart emoji. The photo cut me off at the chin. By 11, the guests were gone. Troy drove us to the hotel. He kissed my forehead. "Get some sleep. Big day." He was out in 5 minutes. Deep breathing, completely still. I lay there wide awake, thinking about the house, the trust, the vows I'd memorized, thinking this was the last night I'd fall asleep as Myra Lawson, and tomorrow I'd be someone new. At 2:07 a.m., my phone buzzed, and the person I woke up as was someone I never expected. Okay, I have to pause here for a second because I know a lot of you are thinking, "Myra, why didn't you read that email from the bank?" Why did you trust your father so completely? Here's what I'll say. When you're deep in wedding planning, when you want to believe your family is still your family, you skip things an outsider would notice right away. That's not stupidity. That's wanting to believe. So let me ask you, do you think Gerald did this because he truly thought it was fair, or because he was scared of Denise? Tell me in the comments. Alright, back to the story. 2 a.m. After Frank's call, I didn't wake Troy. I took my phone into the bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the edge of the tub. The tile was cold under my feet. I opened his banking app again and scrolled to the $40,000 from Dad. That was the headline. But underneath it, buried in months of transactions, I found 3 more deposits. $2,000 in March, $3,000 in April, $1,500 in May. Each one from a different account, each one traceable to Denise Pute Lawson. Not just Dad. Denise was paying Troy directly. The memo lines were vague. Expenses, miscellaneous, reimbursement, the kind of words people use when they don't want a paper trail. But the pattern was clear. Troy had been getting money from both. My father and his wife for 6 months. The total, $46,500. I screenshotted everything. Every transaction, every memo line, every timestamp. Then I sat there for a long time. The man asleep in the next room had taken money from my father to keep me distracted. Every time Troy said, "Don't stress about the timeline." Every time he pushed for a faster wedding date, every time he told me, "Let your dad handle it," he was running out the clock. I didn't cry. Nurses don't cry when the monitor flatlines. We act. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. Mascara from the rehearsal dinner still on. My mother's pearl earrings still in. I looked like a bride. I took the earrings out, put them in my palm, closed my fist. Then I opened the bathroom door, looked at Troy sleeping peacefully, deeply, the way a man sleeps when his conscience has been bought, and I made a decision. I stepped into the hotel hallway in bare feet and called Frank back. He picked up on the first ring. He'd been waiting. "Myra, what did you find?" $46,500 for my father and Denise over 6 months. Frank breathed out slowly. "Then it's worse than I thought." He walked me through the legal picture. As trustee, my father had administrative power over the trust, but the trust deed, which Frank himself had written with my mother, named me as the only beneficiary. Moving the assets to Amber Sutton wasn't a judgment call. It was a breach of fiduciary duty. "Your mother wrote that trust to protect you," Frank said. "Your father just used his role to rob you." "Can he do that?" "He did it, but it's not legal. The trust says that if the trustee breaks fiduciary duty, you, as the beneficiary, have the right to ask the court to recover the money and seek damages." My mind was racing. "You still have the original signed copy?" "It's locked in my office safe since the day your mother and I drafted it." "Gerald doesn't know I kept one." That stopped me. "Why would you keep it?" Frank paused. "Because your mother asked me to. She said, and I remember this exactly, Frank, keep a copy just in case Gerald gets confused about who this money belongs to." My throat tightened. Mom knew. Maybe not the details, but she knew enough to build a backup plan. Frank wasn't done. "There's one more thing. Call your Aunt Helen. She knows things about your father's finances that you need to hear." "What kind of things?" "The kind your mother told her before she died." I hung up and stood alone in that hallway, barefoot, at 3 o'clock in the morning, with my wedding 12 hours away. I made 4 phone calls in 20 minutes. First, the wedding planner. She answered sleepy, confused. "Myra, it's 3 in the..." "Cancel everything. The venue, the flowers, the caterer, all of it." "What?" "Myra, the wedding is in. I know when it is. Cancel it." Second, Pastor Davies's voicemail. I left a message. "There will be no ceremony tomorrow. I'm sorry for the short notice. Thank you for your time." Third, Sarah, my best friend, my maid of honor. She picked up on the second ring because that's who Sarah is. "Myra, what's happening?" "Come get me. I'm at the Marriott on Route 9, room 412. I'll explain on the way." On my way. 20 minutes. Fourth call. I almost didn't make it. I stood outside the hotel room with my hand on the door, phone in the other hand, and thought about what was on the other side. A sleeping man who sold me out for $46,000. A ring on the nightstand that was supposed to mean forever. I didn't call anyone. I went inside. I moved quietly, packed my overnight bag, left my wedding dress hanging in the closet, took my mother's pearl earrings. Then I placed the engagement ring on Troy's nightstand, right next to his phone, and I left a note. 2 words on hotel stationery. Per agreement. I placed the ring where he could find it. I didn't need to say goodbye. The note said everything. I was in the elevator when my hands started shaking. Not from fear, from the sharp, crystal-clear anger of a woman who has just realized that everyone she trusted was in on it. Sarah's headlights were waiting in the parking lot. By 7 a.m., my phone had 14 missed calls from Troy, 6 from my father, and 2 from Denise. I was sitting in Sarah's kitchen, drinking coffee that tasted like nothing. Sarah sat across from me, still in pajamas, staring at the screenshots I'd spread across her table. "Myra," she said quietly. "This is insane." "I know." My phone buzzed again. Dad. I let it ring. Then I opened my messages and typed one text to Gerald Lawson. "I know what you signed yesterday, and I know how much you paid Troy." I hit send. 40 minutes. No response. I watched the clock on Sarah's microwave. 40 full minutes of silence from a man who always had an answer for everything. Then one line. "We need to talk. Come home." Home. He still called that house home. My mother's home. The one he filled with strangers. I didn't respond. Denise texted next. "Sweetie, you're ruining this family. Your father only wanted what's fair. Don't let pride destroy everything." I screenshotted that too. Troy tried a different approach. He sent a long paragraph, rambling, full of words like misunderstanding and context, and I can explain. I didn't read past the first line. By 9 a.m., the guests were arriving at the venue. By 9:30, the wedding planner was turning them away. I know this because Sarah's phone was blowing up with messages from mutual friends. What happened? Is Myra okay? Is the wedding off? I let Sarah handle the questions. I had somewhere to be. "I need to go see my Aunt Helen," I told Sarah. "Now? Right now?" Because Frank said Helen knew things, and I was done being the last person to find out. Aunt Helen was already standing on her porch when I pulled into the driveway, arms crossed, jaw tight. She looked like my mother in that moment. Same sharp eyes, same way of standing like she was bracing for a storm. "Frank called me," she said before I reached the steps. I nodded. She led me to her dining room. On the table was a file box, old, taped at the corners. My mother's handwriting on the label. "Household Finances. L.G. Lawson." Helen opened it. "Your mother and I used to do the family books together. Every year she kept records of everything. Every purchase, every account, every deed. And she gave me copies." She pulled 3 folders. Number 1. A cabin in Shenandoah Valley. Your parents bought it together in 2015. Your mother paid 80% from her savings. After she died, Gerald quietly transferred the deed into his name alone. Never disclosed it during probate. She opened the second folder. Number 2. A half-acre lot outside Richmond. Your mother bought it as an investment in 2017. Paid in full $68,000. Gerald never listed it in the estate. And the third. Number 3. An investment account. Originally $140,000. Your mother opened it. After she died, Gerald rolled it over. It's now in Denise's name. I stared at the papers, receipts, deed transfers, account statements. My mother's handwriting in the margins, neat and careful, the way she labeled everything. Total value? I asked. Roughly $600,000 on top of the trust. Gerald hadn't just taken my trust fund. He'd been looting my mother's estate for 6 years. Your mother paid for that cabin with her savings, Helen said. She showed me the receipts. Gerald never put her name on the deed. By noon on Saturday, the day I was supposed to be dancing at my reception, I was sitting in a law office. Frank had made one call and got me a same-day meeting with Rachel Whitfield. Estate and trust litigation, small firm, big reputation. Her office smelled like lemon cleaner and old books. Rachel was maybe 50, reading glasses on a chain. She didn't do small talk. She spread the documents across her desk, the trust deed Frank had kept, the bank statements from Troy's account, Helen's files on the 3 hidden properties, and read for 12 minutes without speaking. Then she looked up. He didn't just move money, Myra. He violated a dead woman's wishes. Courts don't forgive that. She explained it piece by piece. The trust transfer was a clear breach of fiduciary duty. Gerald had no legal right to change the beneficiary. The 3 undisclosed properties were probate fraud, assets he was legally required to report during the estate settlement, and he didn't. We can file for emergency recovery of the trust and petition to reopen probate for the hidden assets, Rachel said. But I want to approach your father first. Sometimes the threat of a lawsuit moves people faster than the lawsuit itself. And if he doesn't move, then we file, and everything becomes public record. She looked at me over her glasses. One question. Does your father know your aunt kept those records? No. Rachel almost smiled. Good. She drafted a demand letter before I left. 72 hours for Gerald to reverse the trust transfer, or we'd sue for breach of fiduciary duty and probate fraud. I walked out of her office into blinding sunlight. My phone showed 37 unread messages. I read none of them. I had a plan now. He found me at Aunt Helen's that evening. I don't know who told him where I was. Maybe my father. Maybe he drove around until he saw my car. But at 6 p.m., Troy Beckett was standing in Helen's driveway, still wearing the shirt he had on at the rehearsal dinner, his eyes red. Helen looked at me. You want me to tell him to leave? No, I'll handle it. I stepped onto the porch. Troy stopped at the bottom of the steps. He looked like he hadn't slept. Good. Myra, please let me explain. I waited. Your dad came to me 6 months ago. He said he needed to restructure the trust before the wedding. He said if I could move the wedding up, give him time to handle paperwork, he'd help with my loans. I didn't know the whole picture. Per agreement, I said. He flinched. That's what the memo said, Troy. Per agreement. People don't write that on a gift. I thought it was $40,000 plus $6,000 from Denise. You took $46,000 from my father to keep me busy planning a wedding while he stole my mother's money. There's no version of that where you're the victim. He started to cry right there on the bottom step, hands over his face, shoulders shaking. I watched him, and I realized something. Troy wasn't crying because he felt guilty. He was crying because he got caught. There's a difference. Guilt shows up before the confrontation. Troy showed up after. You need to leave, I said. He looked up. Myra. Now. He stood there for a long moment. Then he walked back to his car, and I watched his tail lights disappear down Helen Street. I never spoke to him again. Sunday morning, Gerald called. I almost didn't answer, but Rachel had said, let him talk. People who are scared say useful things. So I picked up. Myra. His voice was hard. Not the father voice, the foreman voice, the one he used on construction sites. You're tearing this family apart over money. Over Mom's money, I said. I raised you. I kept that trust safe for 6 years. And this is how you repay me. He kept it safe. That's what he told himself while signing it away. Amber has nothing, Myra. No career, no savings, no plan. You have a nursing degree. You have a job. You're strong. She needs this more than you do. That trust isn't yours to give. I'm the trustee. I made a decision. You made a deal with my fiancé behind my back. Silence. Then, you're going to regret dragging this family through the mud. He hung up. Within an hour, Denise started her campaign. She texted me, your father only wanted what's best for everyone. Don't let greed destroy this family, sweetheart. Then the messages from relatives started coming. 3 texts, 2 calls. All saying different versions of the same thing. Gerald says you canceled the wedding over the trust fund. He says you're being greedy. What's going on? He'd called them. All of them. He'd told his version first. The version where he's a loving father trying to help his stepdaughter, and his biological daughter is punishing him for it. I read every message. I responded to none, because I knew something Gerald didn't. Rachel's demand letter was arriving by certified mail on Monday, and I had a folder of documents he didn't know existed. Let him set the stage. I'd correct the record. Monday afternoon. A text from Amber. I hadn't heard from her directly since the rehearsal dinner. She'd been silent through all of it. The cancellation, the chaos, the phone calls. I assumed she was following Denise's lead, staying quiet, letting the grown-ups fight. Then this, Myra, I'm sorry, but Mom said this was family money. I thought it was okay. I typed back. This is money my mother, Linda, left for me in a trust. Your mother has no legal claim to it. Neither do you, Amber. But your dad agreed. My dad is the trustee. He doesn't own the money. He manages it, and he broke the law transferring it. A pause. Then, I didn't ask for any of this. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I asked the question. How long have you known, Amber? She didn't answer for 10 minutes. I watched the typing bubble appear, disappear, appear again. Finally. 3 months. 3 months. She knew 3 months before my wedding. She sat at my rehearsal dinner knowing my father had already started the transfer. She let Denise pick her bridesmaid dress knowing it would be paid for with money stolen from my dead mother. Did you help choose the timing? I asked. No response. An hour later, she sent one more message. I didn't plan this, but I didn't stop it either. I stared at that sentence for a long time because it was the most honest thing anyone in that family had said to me in 6 years, and it changed nothing. Amber wasn't the mastermind, but she held the door open while my father and Denise walked through it. Silence isn't innocence. It's a choice. I saved the texts and forwarded them to Rachel. Tuesday, the call I'd been dreading, the mortgage lender's name on my screen, First Valley Savings. Miss Lawson, we've been reviewing your file, the trust disbursement that was supposed to fund the rest of your purchase. We're showing it hasn't been processed. I'm aware there's a legal dispute. I understand, but our timeline is firm. If we can't verify funding within 14 days, the contract lapses. You'd lose the earnest deposit and face possible penalties. $60,000. 6 years of 12-hour night shifts. 3 a.m. vital checks and code blues and holiday doubles and eating cold soup in the break room because there was never time to heat it. All of it gone if I couldn't fix this in 2 weeks. I sat in my car outside Aunt Helen's house and closed my eyes. 5 minutes. I gave myself 5 minutes to feel the full weight of it. 6 years of night shifts. That's not money. That's my life as a number. Then I opened my eyes and called Rachel. We need to move faster. The demand letter arrives today, she said. Gerald has 72 hours to respond. What if he doesn't? Then we file an emergency petition. A judge can freeze the transfer and appoint a new trustee. But Myra, it'll be tight. It has to work, Rachel. I know. I hung up and stared at the house across the street. Someone else's home. Someone else's porch. Someone else's normal Tuesday. I thought about the kitchen counter on Maple Ridge Lane, the eggshell white walls, the spot where I was going to hang Mom's photo. It wasn't just a house. It was the first thing I'd ever built completely on my own. And I was not going to let my father take it from me. Gerald received Rachel's letter on Tuesday afternoon. Certified mail. Return receipt. I know what it said because Rachel sent me a copy. It was 2 pages, single-spaced, and every sentence hit like a hammer. It cited the trust by document number. It named the fiduciary violations. It referenced the 3 undisclosed properties. It gave Gerald 72 hours to reverse the trust transfer and give up the trustee role, or face a lawsuit that would become public record. According to Aunt Helen, who still had friends in common with Gerald's neighbors, the letter arrived while Denise was at a hair appointment. Gerald read it alone. He called Denise right away. She has a lawyer, he told her. Helen's friend overheard this through an open window. Small towns are like that. A real one. Trust and estate. Denise's response, relayed secondhand. It's a bluff. She won't sue her own father. But Gerald wasn't sure. And for the first time, I heard uncertainty in his voice when he called me that evening. Myra, you really want to take your father to court? I'm not suing my father, I said. I'm holding my mother's trustee accountable. He went quiet. I could hear Denise in the background whispering something I couldn't make out. Coaching him even now. Then Gerald said the thing I'd been waiting for. Let's settle this as a family. This Sunday, everyone comes to the house. We talk it through like adults. He thought he was setting a trap. A room full of relatives, already filled with his version of events, ready to pressure me into backing down. Fine, I said. Sunday. He thought I was walking into his arena. He didn't know I was bringing my own. Gerald spent the rest of the week working the phones. He called every relative on both sides, his brothers, his cousins, mom's cousins, even old family friends who hadn't been to a Lawson gathering in years. Come Sunday, he told them, there's been a misunderstanding. I need the family together. But I knew what he was really doing. And I knew because Helen told me. Denise is calling people too, Helen said Thursday night. She's telling everyone you canceled the wedding because you're jealous of Amber. That you're threatening to sue your own father because you want more money. What are people saying? Some believe her, some don't. Most are confused. I spent Friday and Saturday preparing. Rachel helped me organize copies of every document. The original trust deed, Troy's bank statements, the records of the 3 hidden properties. I put everything in a blue folder. Clean, labeled, professional. Rachel looked at the folder. If you do this, there's no undoing it. Once they see these documents, the family will know everything. That's the point. You don't need their approval, Myra. Legally, you have everything you need to file. I know, but my father stood up at that rehearsal dinner and called himself a good dad in front of 40 people. He called relatives and told them I'm greedy. He poisoned the well. I held up the blue folder. This is the truth, and they deserve to hear it from me. Rachel nodded. Then let them see. But stay calm. Don't accuse. Just present. Sunday morning. I put on a plain gray blouse. No jewelry except my mother's pearl earrings. I picked up the blue folder, tucked it under my arm, and drove to my father's house. My hands were steady. I wasn't going to war. I was going to set the record straight. I have to be honest with you for a second. Driving to that house, my hands were on the steering wheel and they were steady. But inside I was shaking. Not because I was scared of my father, but because I knew that after today, the word family would never mean the same thing again. Some things, once you say them out loud, you can't take back. But some things, if you don't say them, you lose yourself. So here's my question. Should Myra have laid the documents out right away, or waited for Gerald to finish talking first? Tell me in the comments. Okay. Sunday arrived. 23 people in my father's living room. I counted them as I walked in. Gerald's brother Ray and his wife. 2 of Mom's cousins. Helen sitting near the window. Neighbors. Old family friends. Gerald at the front of the room, standing in front of the fireplace. Denise beside him in a floral dress, one hand resting on his arm, Amber on the couch, eyes on the floor. I sat down, blue folder on my lap. Nobody talked to me directly. A few smiled. Most looked uneasy. Denise had done her work. Gerald cleared his throat. Thank you all for coming. I know this is unusual, but there's been a misunderstanding in our family, and I wanted to address it with people I trust. He looked at me, then looked away. Myra canceled her wedding last weekend. I understand she's upset about a financial decision I made, a decision I had the authority to make as trustee of her mother's estate. He stood straighter. I transferred the trust fund to Amber because she needs it more. Myra has a nursing career. She earns a good living. Amber is 24, still trying to get on her feet. I made a judgment call as a father. Denise nodded. A few relatives shifted in their seats. I'm sorry Myra disagrees, but I made this decision out of love for both my daughters. He sat down. Denise rubbed his back. The room waited, faces turned toward me. Some kind, some doubtful. One of Gerald's cousins, I don't remember her name, actually shook her head at me like I was the problem. I let the silence sit for 5 seconds. Then I stood up, placed the blue folder on the coffee table, and opened it. Dad's finished. Now, let me show you what actually happened. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. This is the original trust deed my mother signed with her attorney, Frank Calloway, 6 years ago. I held it up so the room could see the notarized seal. Page 3, Section 4. Sole beneficiary. Myra Lawson. There is no section that lets the trustee transfer funds to anyone else. I set it down. This is a bank statement from Troy Beckett's account. I placed the printout next to the trust deed. 6 months ago, my father deposited $40,000 into my fiancé's account. The memo reads, per agreement. My father paid the man I was going to marry to move up our wedding date, to keep me busy while he finished the transfer. The room went silent. Not quiet. Silent. The kind of silence where you can hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. Gerald's face had turned white. Denise's hand dropped from his arm. And these, I said, opening the last section of the folder, are records of 3 properties my mother bought during her lifetime. A cabin in Shenandoah Valley, a half-acre lot outside Richmond, an investment account worth $140,000. I looked straight at my father. None of these were disclosed during probate. The cabin deed was transferred to your name. The investment account is now in Denise's name. I laid each document flat on the table, one by one, like dealing cards. You didn't make a decision as a father. You made a deal behind your daughter's back with her own fiancé, and you've been hiding my mother's assets for 6 years. I sat down. 23 people stared at the coffee table. Nobody moved. Uncle Ray was the first to speak. Gerald, what the hell is this? Denise stood up first. Of course she did. This is private. This is a family matter, and Myra is airing dirty laundry in front of... No, Denise. Aunt Helen's voice cut across the room like a blade. She stood by the window, arms at her sides, steady as stone. This is accountability. The room turned. Helen stepped forward. Linda was my sister. Before she died, she showed me every financial record she had. I have copies of every document in that folder, every receipt, every deed. I can confirm that everything Myra just showed you is accurate. Denise turned to Gerald. Say something. Don't just sit there and let her humiliate us. But Gerald couldn't speak. He sat in his chair with his hands gripping his knees, staring at the documents on the table like they were written in a language he'd forgotten. Mom's cousin Margaret spoke next. Quiet. Controlled. Gerald, you promised Linda you'd take care of Myra. You stood at the funeral and said that. I was there. Gerald's brother Ray wasn't quiet at all. He leaned forward, face red. Gerald, I lent you $30,000 last year. You said it was for home repairs. He pointed at the documents. Where did that money go? Gerald opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I was trying to do right by everyone. By paying off your daughter's fiancé, Ray said. By hiding property from your dead wife's estate. Amber stood up from the couch. She didn't say a word. She walked to the front door, opened it, and stepped outside. The screen door banged shut behind her. Denise watched her daughter leave. For the first time since I'd known her, Denise Lawson had nothing to say. The room was not on Gerald's side anymore. I waited for the noise to settle. The murmurs, the shifting chairs, the sound of 23 people rethinking everything they thought they knew about Gerald Lawson. Then I looked at my father. Dad. He raised his eyes. They were wet. I didn't come here to humiliate you. I came because you didn't give me any other choice. I kept my voice even, the way I talk to families in the ICU. Clear, direct, no cruelty. I'm asking for 3 things. 1. Reverse the trust transfer within 48 hours. 2. Disclose all 3 of Mom's hidden properties and cooperate with the probate court to return them to her estate. 3. Resign as trustee. Frank Calloway will take over. And if I do all that, then there's no lawsuit, no court, no public record. And if I don't, then my attorney files Monday morning, and everything on this table becomes a legal matter. Gerald looked around the room, at Ray, whose jaw was tight, at Helen, who met his eyes without blinking, at Denise, gripping the arm of the sofa hard enough to turn her knuckles white. He looked at the space where Amber had been sitting. Empty now. And then he looked at me. Really looked at me. For the first time in maybe years he saw me. Not the capable daughter who didn't need anything. Not the reliable one who would be fine no matter what. Me. He nodded. One nod. Small. Broken. Okay, he said. I closed the folder, picked it up, stood. I didn't come here to destroy my family, I said to the room. I came because my family tried to destroy what my mother left me, and I couldn't let that happen. I walked out the front door. Aunt Helen followed me. Nobody stopped us. Gerald signed the reversal papers on Tuesday afternoon. Rachel was there. Frank was there. Gerald came alone. Denise, for the first time, was not invited. The trust transfer was voided. Frank Calloway took over as trustee, exactly as my mother would have wanted from the beginning. By Wednesday, the bank confirmed the funds were restored. I called First Valley Savings. "The trust disbursement is confirmed," the loan officer said, and I could hear her smiling through the phone. "Closing is back on schedule. The house on Maple Ridge Lane. Still there, still mine." Rachel filed a petition to reopen probate for my mother's estate the same week. The 3 hidden assets, the cabin, the lot, the investment account, would be reviewed. The court process would take months, maybe a year. But the wheels were moving. Troy sent me a message on Wednesday night. Long. 4 paragraphs. I saw the preview on my lock screen. "Myra, I know you probably won't read this, but I need you to know." I blocked his number before I finished the first line. Thursday. Gerald called. I almost didn't pick up, but something in me, the part that still remembers him carrying me on his shoulders at the county fair when I was 6, answered. "Myra. Dad. I hope you'll be happy in that house." I waited for the apology. It didn't come. He didn't say sorry. And for the first time, I didn't need him to. "I will," I said and hung up. I sat in Sarah's guest room for a while after that, holding my phone, thinking about all the ways that call could have gone. All the things he could have said. But people tell you who they are. You just have to stop rewriting their lines. The fallout came in waves. Uncle Ray demanded his $30,000 back publicly at a family barbecue the following weekend. A barbecue Gerald did not attend. Ray told anyone who would listen, and in a small Virginia town, that meant everyone knew by Monday. Gerald's reputation, the steady, reliable, blue-collar patriarch, cracked open like old paint. People who'd known him for decades stopped returning his calls. 2 of his oldest friends from the construction days quietly removed him from their hunting group. Denise and Gerald fought. Helen heard about it from a mutual friend. Screaming matches, doors slamming, the kind of fights neighbors pretend not to hear. Denise blamed Gerald. "You let her humiliate us. You should have fought back." Gerald blamed Denise right back. And then the twist I didn't see coming. Gerald found out through the documents Rachel subpoenaed during the probate review that Denise had told Amber about the trust transfer plan before Gerald had even agreed to it. 3 months before. Denise had promised her daughter, "This money will be yours," while she was still working on convincing Gerald to sign. Gerald wasn't the architect. He was the last domino. Denise had built the whole scheme, approaching Troy, suggesting the payment, timing it around the wedding, and fed it to Gerald one piece at a time until he thought it was his own idea. "You told me this was the right thing," Gerald said to Denise, according to what Helen later told me. "You told me Myra would understand." The investment account, $140,000 now frozen in Denise's name, sat in legal limbo while the probate court worked. Amber sent me one final message. "I'm sorry. I should have told you." I read it. I didn't reply. Some apologies need time before they deserve an answer. 3 weeks after the family meeting, Aunt Helen and I drove to Shenandoah. The cabin sat at the end of a gravel road, tucked between 2 ridges of oak and hickory. Small, 2 bedrooms, a porch with a swing that needed oiling. The kind of place my mother would have loved. The kind of place she did love. Because she paid for it. Helen had the old key. She'd kept it since Mom was alive. The lock was stubborn, but it turned. Dust and stillness. Gerald clearly hadn't been there in years. We walked through the rooms slowly. The furniture was covered in sheets. The kitchen faucet dripped, cobwebs in the corners. Then I found the box. It was in the bedroom closet on the top shelf behind a stack of folded quilts. A shoebox, plain, with my mother's handwriting on the lid. "For Myra when she finds this place." I opened it on the bed. Inside were old photographs. Mom and me at the beach. Mom at her library desk. Mom and Helen laughing at some Thanksgiving I barely remembered. And at the bottom, a letter, sealed. My name on the envelope. I opened it with shaking hands. "My sweet girl, if you're reading this, it means you found the cabin. I bought it for you, Myra. Not for your father. For you. So you'd always have a place that's just yours. Somewhere to come home to. I hope you're reading this on a good day. But if you're not, know that I planned for that too." Helen held me while I cried. The first time I'd cried through this whole mess, she knew. My mother knew. Maybe not the details, but she knew enough to leave me clues. And I finally followed them home. 3 months later, I'm standing in the kitchen of the house on Maple Ridge Lane, the one with the eggshell white walls and the granite counters I ran my hand along a lifetime ago. The fruit bowl is on the counter. Ceramic blue, from the farmer's market. The coffee maker is where I imagined it, and Mom's photo hangs right above the window, where the morning light touches it every day around 7. The closing went through on time. The trust fund covered the mortgage. My $60,000 in savings stayed in my account. A cushion I earned myself. I live alone. And I want you to know that sentence doesn't make me sad. It makes me steady. Aunt Helen came for the housewarming. She brought a casserole and a framed photo of Mom and me at my nursing school graduation. Frank Calloway came too, stood in the living room, looked around, and said, "Linda would approve of this kitchen." I almost laughed. Sarah brought flowers, yellow tulips. She put them on the dining table and said, "You know what I like about this place? It's quiet." She's right. It is quiet. The probate case is still moving through the courts. The cabin and the Richmond lot are being reviewed. Rachel says the timeline is 6 to 12 months, but the documentation is strong. These things move slow, she told me. But they move. I don't know what will happen with those properties. I don't know if I'll keep the cabin or sell it. I don't know a lot of things, but I know this. The kitchen counter feels different now. It isn't just a counter. It's proof. Proof that I could lose everything in one night and rebuild it without turning into someone I'm not. Gerald called twice in those 3 months. The first time I didn't answer, not because I was angry, but because I wasn't ready. The second time, 8 weeks after the family meeting, I picked up. "Myra. Dad." A long pause. I could hear him breathing. No background noise. No Denise whispering instructions from the couch. "I'm sorry," he said. "I should have protected what your mother left you. I didn't. That's on me." I closed my eyes, leaned against my kitchen wall, and let the words sit. "I accept your apology," I said. "But I need time. A lot of time." "I understand. And I need you to know something, Dad. You're not my trustee anymore. You're not in charge of my finances, my choices, or my future. That's over permanently." "I know. If we're going to have a relationship, and I'm not promising we will, it starts at 0. No assumptions. No, I'm your father, so I know best. 0. He was quiet for a long time. Then, "Okay." That was it. No argument, no excuses, just okay. I don't know if Gerald and Denise are still together. Last I heard from Helen, they were in marriage counseling, or maybe separating. I didn't ask for details, and Helen didn't push. Amber never contacted me again after that last text. I think about her sometimes. She was 24, stuck between her mother's greed and someone else's legacy. That doesn't excuse her silence, but it explains it. Forgiving someone doesn't mean letting them back into the same room. It means you stop carrying what they did. I'm learning that some days are easier than others. But every morning, I drink my coffee in the kitchen my mother helped me buy, and I know exactly where I stand. This morning, I sat on the front porch of my house with a cup of coffee and watched the sun come up over Maple Ridge. The air smelled like cut grass and the neighbor's jasmine. A school bus stopped at the corner. A dog barked somewhere. Normal sounds. The sounds of a life that's truly mine. I've been thinking about what my mother said in that hospital room. "This money is for settling, Myra, not for spending." For 6 years, I thought settling meant a house, a number in a bank account, a ring, and a last name. I was wrong. Settling means standing on ground that won't move under your feet. It means knowing the people in your life are there because they chose to be, not because they were paid to be, not because they're waiting for something, not because someone else set it up. It means the truth is on the table, even when the table is in a room full of people who didn't want to hear it. My mother left me a trust fund. But what she really left me was the courage to trust myself. I'm 28 years old. I am single. I own my home. I work the night shift at Riverside Memorial 3 days a week and pick up a fourth when I feel like it. I visit the Shenandoah cabin once a month. Aunt Helen comes with me sometimes. We sit on the porch swing and don't say much. I don't have everything figured out, but I have what matters. I have the truth. I have the boundaries. And I have a kitchen counter with morning light that hits it just right, the way I always imagined it would. That's enough. That's more than enough. That's settling. Thank you for staying until the end of this story. If you've ever had to draw a line with someone who was supposed to protect you, your parent, your partner, anyone, I want you to know something. You're not wrong for protecting yourself. You're not selfish. You're not ungrateful. You're surviving. If this story meant something to you, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you want more stories like this one, the next video is linked in the description below. I'll see you there. Take care of yourselves.